Hey everybody, welcome to Crazy Tech Lab, and I've got an awesome video for you today because I have been talking to AMD's Director of Technical Marketing, Robert Hallock, about all things Zen 4, Socket AM5 and Ryzen 7000, and answering some key questions certainly that I had from the Computex event this week, where we learned more about Ryzen 7000 and things such as why AMD has gone only with DDR5 memory with Socket AM5. So you heard that right, there will be no DDR4 support on Socket AM5 whatsoever, even with cheaper chipsets. And why it decided to split the top-end chipset between the X670 chipset and the X670 Extreme. So a brand new decision there from AMD. All the decision-making process behind that revealed in this video. Also, what cooler you will need to cool an AM5 CPU. Have there been any changes in heat output between AM5 and AM4? Will you need a bigger, better cooler, for example? We already know that your cooler will fit on Socket AM5 if you have got a Socket AM4 cooler now, so that's great news, but what extra heat you're going to have to deal with. And something, a little sweetener at the end, is what is happening with Threadripper. So we haven't really had any successors to the likes of the Threadripper 3960X and 3970X. We've had Threadripper Pro, but nothing kind of in between on the high-end desktop. So there's a little bit of a sweetener at the end of this video if you're interested in Threadripper as well. So thank you to Robert for taking his time to talk to me today. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment below to let me know if you've got any other questions for AMD that they might be able to answer in future, and let me know what you think of this video. And if you do subscribe, don't forget to turn on those notifications so you're notified about future videos as well. And don't forget to check out my other videos, loads of stuff on my channel. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Okay, so obviously super exciting times. The CPU wars are showing no signs of abating, and some really interesting technology that we've got to play with in addition to like the usual increases in IPC and frequency and performance and that kind of stuff. So I guess I'd like to sort of start in the present, because the 5800X3D has been a really interesting part that we've got to play with in the last couple of weeks. So I guess maybe even unexpected as well. But can you tell us why AMD released it now? Was it kind of to showcase 3D V-Cache, or to bolster gaming performance against some decent competition for a change, or maybe a whole bunch of things?
Can I just answer yes to all of those questions?
Yeah.
I think what you've seen from AMD, and I'm not sure how often it's recognized, is we've been pushing packaging technology very hard. I think we all we get very focused on this Zen versus that Zen, or what process node we're on, but there's this third column of progress that AMD's been making, where we went from monolithic dies to MCMs, where all the dies have the same capabilities, to chiplets, where they're mixed capabilities, mixed node, and now 3D stacking. And that's a 5-year, 6-year roadmap for us, in the same way that Zen has been a 5 or 6-year roadmap for us. So the time felt right to show what we can do with 3D stacking. Yes, for gaming performance, but also to give people a technical preview of where we're headed outside of Zen, and what we can do for performance without iterating process or architecture.
Yeah.
So you see AMD now with 3 different columns of performance control that are all very significant and kind of equal in terms of benefit. And all of them will play a role in our roadmap going forward. So it was one part, look what we can do, and one part, we wanted to give a really strong, I'll call it, finish to Socket AM4. Even though it's not going anywhere, we wanted to end on a high note.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I'll probably bring all of my questions forwards actually on that note. So I think something that a few of my readers have asked is 3D V-Cache going to be included in all Zen 4 CPUs, or is it going to be like you'll have, we've got at the moment, we've got the Ryzen 7 5800X, and then you've also got the X3D model of that. So is there going to be that separation with 2 different product ranges, one with Vcache and one without, or are they all going to have Vcache?
I can't go into details yet on the
Okay,
roadmap, but I do want people to know that 3D Vcache will live on. There will be Zen 4 with
okay,
3D Vcache. You will see that in the future. That is
yeah,
not a one-off technology.
yeah, okay, that's fine. So, is the 5800X3D going to be the last processor we'll see launched on socket AM4?
I would say probably not. I mean, I don't really know what we plan to do with socket AM4, but
Mm,
I think you saw Lisa talk about during her keynote that AM4 will continue, that it will
yes,
live on,
yeah,
and it certainly has huge demand, um, both from DIY builders and from pre-built customers. So
yeah.
could there be more AM4? Probably, but I don't have anything specific to say or announce.
Sure, no problem. I mean, I guess looking at previous generations, AM4 would probably sit alongside socket AM5 as
Yeah,
that's generally what's happened with AMD with current and previous generations in the past. So even if there are no more CPUs, I guess that's probably the plan, something like that for the next couple of years.
yeah, you'll absolutely see AM4 live on in parallel, carrying up lower price points or more mainstream options for people. And that's not to say that Zen 3 on AM4 is slow by any means. So
Yeah.
um, there's definitely opportunity for it going forward.
Yeah, great. Okay. So Socket AM4 has had a gloriously long lifespan, made even sweeter by the new backwards compatibility of Ryzen 5000 with first generation AM4 boards. Is AMD aiming for a similarly long lifespan with Socket AM5, like make more than the usual two generations we've seen from your competitors?
I don't know yet. That's the honest answer. Don't know
Okay.
yet. We're still early in the bring up of AM5. I mean, it releases in the fall, but
Yeah.
that there's a long time between now and release. And one of the things we want to clear up is what does that look like?
Yeah.
Because we know our users expect transparency and clarity on that topic. We
Yeah.
intend to give it. We just don't have an answer yet.
Yeah, okay. So a popular question I've seen is whether DDR5 memory will be the only memory type supported across all socket AM5 chipsets. That certainly seems to be the case from what we've seen so far. I guess was support for DDR5 as DDR4 as well as DDR5 considered at all, given what the competition's doing? And what can you say to enthusiasts that are maybe a bit concerned about the high prices of DDR5 and at the moment the limited gains that it offers over
Mm-hmm.
DDR4?
Yeah, I think that all kind of gloms together as a macro topic about supply and pricing and performance
Sure,
benefits.
yeah,
And what I'd want to say is we've been in active conversations with all the memory vendors, the PMIC vendors, the module makers for months now, and we wanted to make sure that their supply outlook matches our supply forecast.
hmm,
And we are not seeing any challenges in the supply chain in that time frame. And in fact, I'm very excited about AM5 being exclusively DDR5. I want to be very clear about that. There's no DDR4 support
okay,
because it will create that demand, that economy of scale that doesn't exist today. A new
yeah, okay,
technology always has that weird chicken and egg problem. It's like, well, you need adopters to bring the price down, but if you give them an alternative, they're not going to adopt it.
yeah,
That's the market we're in now. And I think it's fair to say that memory vendors are somewhat frustrated by that.
hmm,
Um, so we're all in on DDR5. It's a great technology, lower power, the overclocking is better. Um, it's just the density's better,
yeah.
and that's why we're exclusively relying on it. And I think people will see that economy of scale and that exclusivity help bring the prices down and improve the overall diversity in the market.
Yeah, sure. No, that's a really good answer. Thank you. So memory speed has been quite intertwined with performance with Ryzen in the past with the Zen architecture and
Mm.
Infinity Fabric. Can you tell us more about how Zen 4 scales with DDR5 and its timings? Is opting for some of the faster kits going to yield significantly more performance, maybe in the same way that a 3600 kit offered much more performance than a 2066 kit with Zen 3, for example.
Sure. I would say that in terms of overclocking, Zen 4 is like Zen 3 or Zen 2. The features are the same, they function the same, the benefits are similar. There's not like this massive relearning or re-education that has to happen
Yeah.
because of Zen 4. So it's pretty predictable in that regard. I will say that I am excited about what DDR5 can offer from both the memory clock and fabric clock point of view,
Hmm.
but it's too early to give specifics.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So sticking with memory for a second, will that have any impact on the performance of the new integrated RDNA 2 graphics at all, or are they sort of separate
Oh,
entities?
yeah, that's a good question. So for us, I guess I'd want to highlight that APUs, as people think of them today, with large graphics cores, that will continue in our roadmap.
Hmm.
The Ryzen 7000 series doesn't signal a change there because the Ryzen 7000 series only has a couple compute units in the I/O die, chiefly to enable display outputs up to
Sure.
4 and video encode and decode right on the CPU.
Hmm.
That will mostly help us in the commercial market where they don't buy discrete at all.
Hmm.
And now we have a full stack of Ryzen CPUs that all have graphics, can all do encode decode, can all light up a display.
Yeah.
That's a big business opportunity for us.
Hmm.
But for enthusiasts, we know they're going to have a discrete. So, yeah, we didn't push that integrated graphics too hard in terms of performance.
Yeah.
They're light duty office type graphics.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. That basically answers my next question as well.
Yeah.
So that was a 2-in-1 there. So moving on to Zen 4 then, and something that's generated quite a bit of interest is how Zen 4 CPUs will balance frequency increases with IPC and power consumption. It looks quite different to Zen 3 there in some ways. So we've seen some impressive frequencies, of course, with 5.5 gigahertz in the demo in the keynote. And obviously big single-threaded performance increases as well. Can you tell us anything about the actual IPC increases with Zen 4?
Not yet. Uh,
Okay.
there's a couple things I'd want to say about that 15% number.
Mhm.
Notice we said greater than 15. That's point number one.
Yeah.
The asterisk on that is that we're being conservative in 4 different ways when providing people that number. Um, we're very excited about the single thread uplift in Zen 4, both from process and from IPC point of view.
Yeah.
And we do fully intend to give people the exact breakdown over the summer. We know that's a hot topic, but I
Yeah.
think people expect us to have that transparency. No change there. We will provide it. And then on a frequency point of view, what I will say is that 16 core prototype part that we demonstrated, kind of all the cores were running around 5.5.
Hmm.
I mean, there's not enough threads in a game to get all 16 cores running at 5.5, but
Mm.
of the ones that were running the game, yeah, they're they're all at 5.5.
Yeah.
So we're getting a lot of extra headroom out of the new process in Zen 4, and it should pay pretty big dividends for the chip.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like it. So, obviously, tying in with that, the socket power has increased as well, which I guess is going to allow those CPUs to hit those higher all-core frequencies,
Mm.
especially. So, we already know that cooler compatibility remains the same, which is great. But will we see maybe some increases in cooling requirements and higher heat outputs? Maybe, for example, will an 8-core Zen 4 CPU generate more or the same heat as a Ryzen 7 5800X, for example?
Well, that's a good question. So I think it'll manifest in a couple ways. First, I'd want to say that I actually want to fact check myself from yesterday. I got my wires crossed. So it's 170 watt TDP is a
Yeah.
new option, but that's a
Okay.
socket power of 230
Okay.
because TDP times 1.35 is always our socket power.
Yeah.
And so that's true of 65, 105 watt, and 170 watt TDP. So
Hmm.
let's clear the air on that. In terms of coolers, I think anybody who is inclined to larger Noctua coolers or 240 millimeter, 280 mil liquid coolers will be just fine
Okay.
on socket AM5. I myself intend to reuse my Noctua NHD15.
Hmm.
Um, But I also want to say that this new 170 watt option for TDP does not signal a broad-based change in how we're approaching TDPs. There will
Sure.
still be 65, there will still be 105. We simply want an option to expose more multi-core performance on higher core count CPUs.
Hmm.
And frankly, we left a lot of that on the table in AM4 with 142 watt socket power limit.
Yeah.
So being able to expose that gives us, with Zen 4, with frequency, another 50% bump in overall compute performance. It's pretty
Yeah.
big. It's worth it. But that's not going to be up and down the stack. As far as process nodes go, I think people should understand anytime you make a die smaller and add more transistors, that does increase the thermal density, concentrates the heat more, but that doesn't mean the process runs hotter or the
No,
CPU runs
exactly.
hotter or anything like that. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just physics, right? So we want people to use AM4 coolers for a reason, because we think they're perfectly capable.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good answer. So, I guess we used to. This is probably not going to be able to answer this at the moment, but I know one of my readers sent it in, so I thought I'd ask it anyway. But we used to AMD CPUs landing on shelves, kind of not all at once. There's usually maybe like the flagship and maybe one of the mid-range ones. Are there any plans that you know of to launch everything all in one go, like the entire stack, or is it just going to be what we've seen in the past, that you maybe get one or two and then the others follow later down the road?
Still deciding. That's one
Yeah,
of the last decisions that we make. Depends on
yeah,
how the summer goes.
yeah. That's fine. No worries. So the trio of new chipsets is an interesting choice. So, what was the main reason for splitting the top
Mm.
end, X670 and X670E? Was that purely down to PCI Express 5 support, or do you envisage that the highest end CPU with the Extreme chipset would be mainly for professionals, very high end gamers that might otherwise opt for a Threadripper system, for example?
It's a good question. So the decision to split X670 into two chipsets actually goes back to early in the life of X570, where all those boards had PCI Gen 4 on every motherboard.
Hmm.
And at the time, we got the feedback that, hey, I don't have a Gen 4 graphics card, or I don't have Gen 4 storage, or I don't intend to upgrade these for a while. Can you give me an option that doesn't have Gen 4 at a lower cost?
Yeah.
And so we're looking at Gen 5, pretty much the same situation. And now we have an opportunity to take that feedback seriously and do something different.
Hmm.
So the Extreme chipset has Gen 5 on two PEG slots, either
Hmm.
1x16 or 2x8, and then one NVMe will be Gen 5 as well. And then Gen 5 graphics is optional on the non-Extreme. And so what this ends up doing is it creates a wider range of, call it 670 class motherboards with premium controllers, build quality, power phases, etc. But not all of them have the added Gen 5 cost.
Sure.
So it'll make them more available at a wider range of price points, and we hope that's what people are looking for.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's a pretty interesting addition, and I think at the extreme end as well. One feature that a lot of people have actually asked about, and something I'm interested in as well, is Thunderbolt support. So that's had limited support so far on Socket AM4. Just wondering if there's any word on it maybe being included a bit more, especially on the high end chipset.
I think what you see from Computex is there are already motherboards with USB 4 support
Yeah,
announced, and the interoperability there is known. So I'd say the market is already closing that gap.
of course. Yeah. Okay. So I know you probably can't. Actually, also going to go with that one. Yeah. So is there any word on cache sizes for Zen 4 CPUs, sort of outside of any kind of 3D V cache implementation? So are they remaining roughly the same as Zen 3, or with Zen 4 are they increasing?
Well, we're doubling the size of L2 cache
Yeah.
in Zen 4.
Hmm.
It's always a very fine balance on L2 cache because it takes up a fairly healthy size of the core itself. Um, but as We and other vendors, hell, Alder Lake, increased L2 cache size as well. As we all transition to smaller process nodes, it's a good opportunity to
Yeah,
find a new appropriate balance between cost and capacity, because it is a nice IPC improvement, being able to boost your hit rate on the L2 cache without going too far and
yeah.
raising your latency out of control. So that is a cache change in Zen 4, and we'll talk about other caching later.
Okay. So in terms of tweaking and overclocking, I know you mentioned that most stuff there, especially to do with memory, is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I know things that some enthusiasts would like to see more of is, sort of per core monitoring and tweaking and that kind of stuff. Do you know if there are any sort of any add-ons there at all with Zen 4?
We're still working through those overclocking features. For us, it's early. I mean, we got to finish the CPUs and move on to the overclocking side of stuff. It's
Yeah.
kind of a later gate as we head towards the fall.
Yeah, okay. And I guess tying in with that is, will there be any new or improved boosting technologies with Zen 4? Because I know that's something you've been pretty aggressive with in the past, and we've seen some really good technologies. So, yeah, just thought I'd ask that question.
It'll use the same Precision Boost 2
Yeah.
algorithm that's deployed today. It'll be the same, but
Okay.
the great thing about that algorithm is that it scales or flexes, I guess I should say, with sort of whatever process technology or frequency headroom you have available. That is why we built it in the way that we did, because it's kind of a one size fits all solution. So
Sure.
if we pick up a ton of frequency headroom or a ton of multi-core capability or whatever changes exist in that generation of CPU, Precision Boost 2 can expand to fit, and
Mhm.
that will be the case for Zen 4.
Yeah. Okay. So sticking with overclocking for a minute, then I know that it's had maybe an increasingly small part to play in terms of actual manual overclocking with Ryzen, thanks to those those automatic methods such as Precision Boost 2. And manual overclocking has only really been worth it in with very specific CPUs in maybe even very specific workloads as well. It's still something I play with from time to time. Do you think Zen 4 will lean more towards getting the most out of your CPU at stock speed, or will manual overclocking still have its place in a PC enthusiast toolbox, for example?
So for us, this is a philosophical choice that we make. Let's be clear about what overclocking is. Yes, it's fun. Yes, it's exciting. Yes, it feels like you got something for free. But what it also means is, for the vast majority of users, the performance that's in the chip is hidden behind a warranty violation.
Mhm.
And that, for us, not right. We don't want people to have to break their warranty to get this extra frequency that the processor architecture is capable of.
Mhm.
And that is why we bin our parts so aggressively, to take advantage of everything that's there. And Zen 4 will be no different. The return on investment for performance will be in fabric and in memory, and users should not expect a huge change in our approach to CPU core frequency overclocking.
Yeah.
But that said, PBO, Precision Boost Overdrive, will still be beneficial. Curve Optimizer will still be beneficial. Memory overclocking will definitely be beneficial. So really, it's not much different than now, it's a different architecture.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So my final question then, something that's pretty dear to my heart, I know we touched on it earlier, is Threadripper.
Yeah.
So obviously with the inclusion of a high-end chipset in X370E with full PCIe 5 support, and maybe even more multi-threaded performance from what we presume will be a Ryzen 9 7950X, for example. It's looking increasingly unlikely that we'll see a successor to the Threadripper 3960X, 3970X, that kind of thing. Is there any word on a new high-end desktop CPU from AMD at all?
All I can say is Threadripper is not going anywhere.
Okay, that's good. That's a good answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's about it for me. So finished a bit ahead of time as well. So
Oh, that's not so bad.
I know
Very
that's
nice.
pretty
What
good.
time is it? Yeah. Look at that.
I know. Yeah, whipping through it.
Trying to think if there's anything else worth talking about. Man, we did that lightning speed. No, I think that was everything.
It did, yeah, it was lightning speed. It didn't stop. Well, that's great. So yeah, thanks for your time, Robert. I know that's there's lots of meat to dig into there, and I know my readers will be appreciative of those answers to those questions. So yeah,
No problem.
thanks. I'm looking forward to Socket AM5.
Yeah, if you have any follow-ups, just shoot us an email and we'll get back to you.
Yep, fantastic. Okay.
Okay. Talk to you soon.
Have fun. See ya. Thanks a lot.
Have a good one.